It is 0 hour 30, Universal Time. I'm Jim Tedder in Washington. Syria says security forces have killed 3 terrorists in a failed bomb attack on the United States Embassy in Damascus. A 4th suspect was reported wounded. Syrian state media say 1 Syrian security guard was killed and at least 11 other people injured. The wounded include a Chinese diplomat. No Americans were injured. The United States praised Syrian officials for stopping the attack early Tuesday. However, a State Department spokesman called on Syria to decide if continuing to support terrorism is right. But the Syrian embassy in Washington said American policies in the Middle East are inciting extremism and terrorism. The Syrian statement called on the United States to lead negotiations for peace in the Middle East. The president of Iran has offered to help end the violence in Iraq. Mahmoud Ahmadinejad spoke to reporters after meeting with Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki in Tehran. A spokesman for the Bush administration says the most important thing Iran can do is to not financially support separatist groups in Iraq. In June, the top American commander in Iraq accused Iran of providing weapons technology and training to Shiite extremists in Iraq. Also Tuesday, more than 24 people were killed in attacks in Iraq. The violence included a bomb explosion in Baghdad that killed at least 6 people. Officials in Yemen say at least 51 people have been crushed to death in the southern province of Ib. Officials say more than 200 other people have been injured. The incident happened at an election gathering for Yemeni President Ali Abdullah Saleh. Reports say more than 100,000 people had gathered in the center. A larger number were on the streets around the building. Yemen is holding presidential and local elections on September 20th. Also Tuesday, Yemeni tribesmen holding 4 French visitors hostage threatened to kill them if the government uses force to try and free them. The threat came after talks with Yemeni officials failed. The French hostages were kidnapped on Sunday. Afghan officials say security forces have killed at least 12 rebels in Ghazni province. Local officials say 2 policemen and an Afghan soldier were wounded in the fighting. Officials also say more than 28 rebels were captured in military operations across the country. Also Tuesday, the United Nations anti-drug chief called for strong action by NATO forces to destroy the illegal production and sale of the drug opium in southern Afghanistan. Antonio Maria Costa spoke to reporters in Brussels. He said opium sales are paying for terrorist activity. He also said terrorists protect the illegal drug industry. You are listening to the news in VOA Special English. Reports from Turkey say an explosion has killed at least 7 people in the southeastern city of Diyarbakir. Turkish media say at least 10 other people were injured. Kurdish rebels fighting for self-rule in that area have increased attacks this month. The banned Kurdish Workers' Party has claimed responsibility for bombings earlier this month. The attacks were in towns that many traveled to for holiday along Turkey's Mediterranean coast. Turkey has been fighting Kurdish separatists for the past 20 years. A group in Sudan, claiming to be part of Al-Qaeda, says it was responsible for the murder of a Sudanese newspaper reporter. The group, which was unknown until now, calls itself Al-Qaeda in Sudan and Africa. It released a statement to newspapers Tuesday. It said reporter Mohammed Taha Mohammed Ahmed was killed because he insulted the Prophet Muhammad. Mr. Ahmed was found in Khartoum last week with his head cut off. Last year he published reports that questioned the origin of the Prophet Muhammad, the founder of Islam. The International Criminal Court for Rwanda has sentenced a former military commander to 25 years in prison. The court found Tarsis Muvunyi guilty of genocide and crimes against humanity. The court said Muvunyi did nothing to stop his troops from killing hundreds of ethnic Tutsis in Butare province in April 1994. The International Court also said he incited hatred against Tutsis. Muvunyi's lawyer says he will appeal the court's ruling. Earlier, the International Court dismissed charges against another Rwandan war crimes suspect, Jean Mpambara. Judges said lawyers failed to prove that he was involved in the murder of at least 1,000 Tutsis. Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao is in London to meet with British Prime Minister Tony Blair on Wednesday. British officials say the two leaders plan to discuss trade, China's human rights situation, and Iran's nuclear program. Mr. Wen has appealed to the international community to settle the Iran crisis through diplomatic talks, not force. The Chinese leader has been at a conference of Asian and European leaders in Helsinki, Finland. About 50,000 people have attended a show in Moscow by the American singer Madonna. It was her first performance in Russia. About 7,000 police surrounded the sports center where Madonna performed. Some religious demonstrators had threatened to interfere with the show. Police say they arrested 10 people. The Russian Orthodox Church says part of Madonna's show insults Christians. Clergymen asked her not to perform an act where she hangs from a huge cross. Reports say Madonna did not change her show. Briefly, here again is the major news of the hour. The Syrian government says security forces have killed 3 terrorists in a failed bomb attack on the United States Embassy in Damascus. The president of Iran has offered to help end the violence in Iraq. And in Yemen, officials say at least 50 people have been crushed to death at a crowded political event. More than 200 others were injured. And that's the news in VOA Special English. This is Jim Tedder reporting.